Hello, everyone, and welcome to our next session with our next amazing speaker. And in this room, we have the amazing Professor Felicia Golden Grimes. She is a money detective, financial educator, health and wellness coach, and her goal is to transform your life and help you find the money you can't find. Felicia has over 28 years of extensive teaching and primary working within the collegiate environment at a community college and university levels. She has a diverse skill set within higher education as a corporate business developer, workforce director, and major facility coordinator, department chair, recruiter, educational consultant, curriculum developer, and online trainer. Her portfolio likewise reflects diverse educational backgrounds, including a BA in English, a Master's of Reading Education, a Master's of Education in Curriculum Technologies, a Master of General Philosophy, Psychology, currently in progress to obtain her doctorate of Business Administration degree. Felicia is a recipient of the National Institute for Staff and Organization Development, which is the NISOD Teaching Excellence Award, and the Tarrant County College Chandler's Award for exemplary teaching nominee. And she received various student development achievement awards as well. We are so ecstatic to have Professor Felicia Golden Grimes, in the building today because she is going to enlighten us on the topic remote work, changing the face of business. And everyone's coming in the room saying hello. So, what we're going to do, we are going to play her presentation and get this amazing information from her in one moment. Making sure that you can see my screen. If you can see my screen, I want you to type yes in the chat. Type yes in the chat. All right, I'm seeing a resounding yes. So, Professor Felicia Golden Grimes right now is getting ready to share this amazing stage.
I am Professor Felicia Golden Grimes, presenting Remote Work, Changing the Face of Business. As a money detective and financial educator, my goal is to transform your life and help you find money you can't find. I have over 10 years of teaching about financial freedom, money, relationships, confidence, passion, and purpose so you can obtain abundance. In addition to that, I have over 28 years as an educator, teaching primarily on the collegiate and university levels as well as public school. Also, I work as a consultant, a business developer, and personal development person that I often do different motivation speaking engagements. And I volunteer, and I'm also a life, business, and a health and wellness coach. My last passion is identity theft advocate. And if that's not enough for you, I am absolutely excited about being the CEO of Golden Grimes Consultant LLC and the co-CEO of Epic Business Leaders LLC. I have several recognitions. I just want to briefly give you a little bit more information about me. I am a National Teaching Award recipient. Also, I'm an official member of Forbes The Culture, a top influencer of awards and nominee on a national scale, IMBD TV producer. I've also been seen on several news media outlets such as CBS, NBC, Apple Podcasts, just to name a few, also Roku and Spotify. Is remote work changing the face of business? It is absolutely changing the face of business because of the fact that we've had to basically disrupt our lives, disrupt the work environment, disrupt our family lives because of COVID-19, the Delta variant, as well as more recently, the Omicron variant that seemed to be mutating as we speak. And so we're faced with so many different things we have to think about, that we have to consider. And it kind of forces us in a circumstance of what do we do next and how do we do it? So basically, being in this type of environment where we have to isolate ourselves and things of that nature has impacted business in so many incredible ways. And so the impact of COVID-19 has impacted business by disrupting the way organizations function from a traditional digital setup. And so we went from a traditional mode of thinking and operating to everything being primarily online, like being on Teams, being on Zoom, WebEx conferences. It has transformed how we interact, how we operate, and how we serve each other and support each other on a daily basis. About 195 million full-time jobs were lost across different countries because of the pandemic. The global pandemic exposed different vulnerabilities and production strategies and supply chains. And so basically it has kind of created a circumstance where the supply is not meeting all the demand. So we've seen this on different news outlets, that we can't find different products that we use each and every day in our households. It has most definitely had an impact on how we operate and how we make purchases. Small and medium enterprises are more vulnerable than large firms. It basically has shaken so many entities in so many areas. For example, like hospitality and leisure. It has impacted people in being employed to be able to host different events, and it's impacted education and healthcare. So it's impacted everybody on every different level, regardless of what business entity it is. There is a new normal. That's what we're calling it now, a new normal, a new way of thinking, a new way of processing how we're operating on a day-to-day basis. When the COVID-19 pandemic started in March 2020, the work landscape has changed just dramatically. Rapid shift to work from home and flexible work arrangements. It has impacted people on a day-to-day who try to figure out how they're going to work and also teach their kids, because in some cases, in some countries, in some counties, in some cities, they're still teaching their children from home instead of them going to a public school or a private school entity. So this still has some impact on business, because those parents are trying to balance the whole aspect of their child trying to get educated by the parent, and then the parent trying to live up to the responsibilities of their jobs on a day-to-day basis. Digital transformations such as Zoom meetings, cloud-based apps, project management tools have just exploded in the last year or so since the pandemic has started. Everybody's looking for different opportunities to help support their day-to-day tasks that they did face-to-face, and now it's done in a digital environment, and trying to scale up and trying to meet the demands of this situation, because it's totally different from what we've encountered in the past. So insight and statistics. So let's look at trends in remote work growth. And so there's 44% growth in remote work over the last 5 years, because people are adapting to working remotely. They are starting to see like, oh my God, this may be something that I could probably adjust to. 58.6% of the total US workforce are remote workers. And so there are 91% of growth in remote work over the last 10 years. And so 159% growth in remote work over the last 12 years. So you'll see that this is climbing because people are getting acclimated and adjusted to remote work. And so this has helped many people on different levels in order to complete their day-to-day work and responsibilities. Okay, there are so many pros and cons that's impacting businesses. Let's start with opportunities first. It basically allows opportunities to establish new forms of leadership and work autonomy. So now people have to create new ways of thinking in terms of how do you create a new way of working together? How is leadership and management going to manage people from home? What are some new techniques or strategies have to be implemented because of that? So we're refocusing and acceleration of digital capacities to align with evolving customer needs. So also decrease absenteeism, because guess what? People are at home. And so there's less of a turnover because people are at home, and so they're adapting to change. And some people really like the flexibility of working from home. And it is a cost saving because guess what? Overall, businesses are not paying so much money for electricity, utilities. They're not using so much power. And in some cases, some people have literally gotten rid of the brick and mortar locations and they went completely virtual. So there's just a whole new mind space of how this is really impacting. 94% of survey workers asserted greater productivity for the company since employees started working from home during the pandemic. Now let's talk about barriers, because there are some barriers that has impacted how we do business on an every single day basis. There is a generation gap because certain age groups can really just connect with the digital world. They can work remotely with the easy setup, but then there's some generations of people that have more challenges. And so because of that, it's impacting some production to a certain degree. And also there are digital ethical issues that could arise because of data use. How do we use it responsibly? Do we have these security systems in place? Also, people are interacting with people less. And so people are missing that. They're working kind of in isolation to a certain degree, and they're missing that day-to-day, connection with collaborating and seeing people visibly and having these short little team huddles. All of that has been impacted because of the new normal that we're facing. And also, last but not, so I don't forget about cybersecurity threats. That's on the rise because of everybody's online in some capacity. So that's another big barrier that companies have to face. So let's look at the pros on workers. We just talked about the pros and cons and barriers in terms of the businesses. So let's talk about from the perspective of the employee. And so the employees have more freedom and flexibility to work on in some cases, the job allows them to create their own schedule. There's less commute stress. Oh my God, nobody wants to deal with traffic for hours and being stuck. I mean, I'm just saying, better work-life balance. And some people are having some easy flow with that. It just depends on, how they can manage it. More savings because guess what? You're not wearing some of those clothes that require you to take your clothes to the dry cleaners, and some people are not shopping as much. So it's a cost savings if you look at it on one hand. Greater productivity because there's less distractions. It depends on your home environment. And some people are able to get some type of customized work from home office schedule. And so some people really thrive in this environment. They really have the motivation, and they don't need to be around people. So it all depends on your personality, if you're introvert or if you're extrovert. So that really determines how this impacts workers. The disadvantages are just the enormous pressure. Think about when we had to transition from being a traditional environment to a digital environment. Trying to get the machine going in terms of how do we do it, how do we move forward, and how do we keep the team together? That is a challenge itself. because you have those gaps of knowledge spaces that people don't have in terms of how do you do this thing digitally? How do you expect me to do it? And can you teach me? And so you have different generations that are having difficulty with that. And also unplugging after work. I mean, because we work in this remote environment, people are just working like some insane hours. I mean, I was doing that myself. I can totally relate. I was up to like beyond midnight working because you don't have a turn off switch because when you work remotely. And so that's something I had to learn and adapt to, adjust to. Also depends on your situation. You may have more distractions at home. And so, your work balance could be different, depends on your circumstances. And so some people don't thrive in isolation. They just cannot, they have to work around other people. That's how they get their energy. And so there are some pros and cons with just working from home and not seeing anyone. For me, I would be okay with that, like forever. I could work from home and I will be happy, happy, happy. But there has to be some kind of coordination in terms of having virtual events that keep everybody motivated, because sometimes people don't like virtual events because they don't have that one-on-one rapport and connection with people. So and because of all of this that has some impact, people feel like they are not going to get promoted because they may not be thriving in this new normal virtual work from home environment. Remote work isn't just the future of work, it's the present. So this is the new mindset of, people working from home. And so there's been a number of realizations regarding the implications of remote working. It's just not a temporary solution to a pandemic, but it could be a permanent business model. There's so many people that are looking at this as a permanent circumstance because it's been very cost effective on so many levels for so many people. So I want to talk to you about a couple models. So the hybrid model of work, about 70% of companies are planning to adopt some form of hybrid work model. So there is a remote first type model. When the pandemic first started, everybody kind of just went remote, just kind of jumped in it, and everybody was remote and didn't have everything together, and we just did the best we could to survive. Okay. But now we're kind of looking at these other options. So we have your remote, and then we have going into the office like occasionally, and that could comprise just like for a couple days a week, and you just kind of show up. You have maybe designated days because you may share office space with someone. So you have to split your time. So, people kind of do that. And then we also have the office first where, workers must report. Those that have the ability, because the way that their job is, they can work remote, but then you have a group of people that have to be in the office at all times. And so we want to look at what are truly the pros and cons of working in this environment, because it's such a learning process from the employee perspective, along with the business entity perspective as well. So employees can visit the office or stay at home based on their preference. And a lot of people just love that. They just love just being at home and working. And some people feel like that's extremely productive. But the con is, guess what? What if you have a technology glitch? What if you feel like you're underutilized at the office space? Like, people just really don't want to see you as much as they used to. And so some people have problems with adapting to just being remote, just never like being in the office. You're just doing your thing from home. And then you have your option B, which is requires employees to be more present in the office, but still willing to have room for some flexibility in individual work. And a lot of people are kind of looking at really office option C, because it's kind of like the worlds of option A and B. You go to work for maybe a couple of days during the week, and you look up that, you're able to get some things done in the office that you can't do from home. So you may look at that from that lens. Sometimes you can't get everything done. Depends on the kind of job you do. You can't get everything done in that parameter of time. Working from home, you may not have the equipment that's needed, so you have to go to the office a couple times a week. And so you have to think about also how it impacts meetings. Sometimes working from home, when you have a large meeting, some people can't adapt to that, so they want to do the face-to-face. So then they'll have the hybrid time for you to go back, report to the office to have a large meeting setting, perhaps following the social distancing guidelines. So there are pros and cons from seeing from both vantage points. Okay, there are so many debates on remote working. And so there is a significant number of employees indicated as that have positive experiences. I mean, everybody has a different perspective on this. And so many, although not all, want to continue to work from home. Some people just are like people, they have to be around other people. And so then some people are just split. So this also depends on what you do for a living, what the job is requiring you, what the expectation is, and what are any outside pressures that you are dealing with that makes you want to go back to work. Now, it could be that people have children and they're still at home and they can't get as many things done. They're not as productive. So you got to think about the outside factors when you're looking at these different elements why people are debating about remote working. And so there are different needs for different scenarios. So there are different strategies. So each company, there are three that I kind of like looked at that I wanted to kind of pay attention to how they formulated their model. You have Charge B, that's an Indian company that's gone fully remote with a completely decentralized work structure. And so it allows employees freedom to work and live where they want. I mean, they just kind of do their own thing as long as they get the job done. And so we have another entity that's based in Warsaw, but with a remote hub of 30 countries. So they're spread out globally, but they're able to focus on performance and output instead of other things. So they can still, live the lifestyle that they want, but there are different hubs all over globe around the world. Now, Google, is one entity that we all know about. And so they do a lot of hybrid return to work plan. And so basically they do a split, like they work 3 days in the office and 2 days, wherever this suits the employee, as long as they're able to get their work completed. And so, and in some cases, for certain people in different leadership roles, just like with any company, they may ask leaders to come to work every day, management to show up every day and not provide them opportunities for remote working. So that's just another thing to think about, that some people in higher levels are required, while we're working remotely, they're required to go to work. So it's kind of like a trade-off because of that. Okay, there are factors to consider for a successful hybrid model. You got to think about the nature of the work. I mean, what type of work that they're really doing? Is it suitable for remote work? I mean, everybody cannot do remote work. Okay, so it depends on the type of job. Also, personality is a factor, because some jobs, you have to kind of have a certain maybe way of interacting with people as well. You have to have maybe some decent or good interpersonal communication skills is what I'm trying to say. And also employee tenure may be one of those factors with allowing people to go hybrid, or it may just be, who can do what jobs can really be done well from home. And so, we look at the investment on digital tools in this digital world that we're in. Everybody had to scale up. So you want to think about that is a factor when people decide to go and apply the hybrid model. And also, last but not least, what are your different remote work policies and capabilities? And in some cases, people had to learn to be accountable of their work. And this didn't exist before because you had to face to face, so you got the accountability. But when you're working from home, people are setting their own schedules, they're doing their own thing. And so things kind of get little different and unusual. So they have to implement some KPIs in order to set expectations and monitor performance. So that's something that that's kind of typical. And as we move into the next phase, now is the time for business to conduct an after action review. So we want to think about how they're collecting data, how they're looking at this perspective, any insights, what have they learned, what have they just did a great job on implementing, what are the best strategies, and what are the things that they have to think about moving forward. So we have some future trends and implementations. The pandemic has challenged the conventional thinking about remote working. And then for some businesses, it's going to be a permanent circumstance. They're not going back to the old school brick and mortar because they've learned that their employees can transition well, they can move forward, they can adapt, they can actually save more money and be more productive. And also the future workforce should be more digital. It's going to be maybe considered could be more flexible. This depends on so many other factors. And so also companies have to think about what is your digital infrastructure? How is it going to sustain you moving forward? Do you have the infrastructure that's needed to scale on a large situation to allow more people to work remotely? So that has to be considered. And also the hybrid work model may be the solution moving forward. For some people, they're able to make those adjustments. They're able still to conduct the professional development, to do their personal development, and overall they have, motivation to work and to get things done and to meet, serious deadlines that have to be met. So you also want to think about remote work, software, and virtual reality conferencing. So many people are so accustomed to like the face-to-face communication and meetings and different times that you may get together with your groups. But now we're all relying on Zoom, WebEx, Teams to communicate, to come up with some of those very serious decisions that impact businesses each and every day. And so businesses have to invest in those remote platforms to still conduct perhaps those annual conferences. I know that I've attended several that they went from brick and mortar to virtual, and now they really like the virtual aspect and strongly considering not going back to doing brick and mortar because they actually got more people to attend virtually, and it was a savings. And so it's a trade-off. So a lot of people are looking at other ways that businesses can still conduct their day-to-day operations through utilizing digital tools and digital information. And so that's just a whole new perspective. So as we're looking at the tail end of this presentation, there are several takeaways. Okay, we want to think about remote working or a hybrid work model that allows some flexibility for work arrangements on-site and off-site. It's got to be, it's got to be a balance that's going to be workable for all parties. Now, let's just be honest here. It may not be a workable solution on the perspective of the employees, but it may be a workable solution in terms of the money that the businesses are saving because they've gone remote versus traditional brick and mortar. So that perspective, sometimes the bottom line is more important than what the employee's perspective and their thinking and their thoughts, their experiences. I'm not in agreement of that, but sometimes that's what it is. So people have to kind of think about how what changes you would have to make in order to work in an environment where you had a hybrid scenario. I think hybrid scenarios are very great because it gives you the flexibility and the opportunity to still have some more remote work opportunity time, but then you are going on to your job and you can literally go work a day or two, go and utilize their technology that they have at the job that you don't have at home, and then you can still be as productive as you were before the COVID-19 hit and all the things of that nature in terms of impact. It would likely to continue as companies try to find the best post-pandemic work model that suits the organization's current and future needs. So as we come out of COVID at some point, companies going to be looking at, like, how much money did I save? How much money did I spend? Like, after they got everybody, after they received the training and the technology that's needed to work remotely, were there any savings, financial, other investments that they could utilize because they have other opportunities to take maybe certain budget lines off because it's no longer needed? Digital transformation through investment or innovative tools are deemed as the utmost necessity to keep up with the trends. I mean, because just imagine, maybe some technology that you used this time last year, it may be totally different to what you're using up today. So you have to kind of think about, you got to keep up with the times, like the employees, leadership, the businesses have to keep up with technology. Continuous improvement of process and systems to ensure foolproof organizational structure in case of future crisis is highly needed. Like, there's so many people that entities never had a true standard operating procedure handbook. Okay, let's be real. They didn't. They were just operating and going. And now when they went in this digital world, now they're thinking, okay, what do I do? How do I do? How do I onboard a new employee virtually? And so now you're going back to recreate some of those steps, or you are modifying those steps to accommodate this new workplace environment. So that's something that's going to take time to build, rebuild, recreate, and come up with some strategic thoughts and processes and best practices to implement. Business owners and managers need to improve remote working policies. You know, think about this. Prior to the pandemic, this didn't even exist. I mean, what remote policy? Unless you were already with an entity or company that offered it. Basically, nowadays, you know, nobody really offers that. But now you have to. You have to recreate, you have to remote, and you have to be better prepared. That is the end of my presentation. This is all the research that I conducted in order to do this presentation. And also, if you would like to get in contact with me, once again, I am Professor Felicia Golden Grimes. I do have my own TV and podcast. If you would like to appear as a guest, please contact me. You can find me. Actually, there's a mistake. On Facebook, I am Felicia Golden Grimes. That you can locate me. It's the same name as you will see on Instagram, Felicia Golden Grimes. And also you can email me at FeliciaGrimesEducation@gmail.com. And if you want to see what I'm up to, you can go to my website, www.FeliciaGrimes.com. And once again, it's been a pleasure presenting to you today.
Wow. Thank you so much, Professor Felicia Golden Grimes, for sharing your presentation on remote work changing the face of business. And as you can see, we learn about the processes that business owners take into consideration as they are transitioning and pivoting into what you like to call our new normal. So thank you for sharing that information and enlightening us on how it really helps businesses to save money to make these remote processes available. So, do we have any? Here's my amazing co host. Do we have any questions for our Professor Felicia Golden Grimes?
Yes, Felicia, we thank you so much for your wonderful speech for today. And yes, women should be financially independent. It helps to bring about dedication, self-control, and self-discipline at an early age, thus making them better human beings and prudent financial investors. As the line saying goes, early to invest, best to harvest. And so here are the questions from our audience. The first question: what do you think helped you the most to make a career as a woman?
I think that what has helped me transformed as a woman is my passion and my drive. You have to have drive to keep going. You know, we're balancing work, career, going back to school, learning new skills, taking care of our households. You have to have the drive to keep your passion moving forward. You cannot continue with your goal if you don't have a drive behind you.
Yes, that's perfect. And the next question: what is the biggest factor that has helped you to be successful?
Consistency with having my goals written out, and I look at what milestones that I make per goal every couple months, and also at the end of the year I go back and say, did I achieve that goal? Am I working toward that goal? And don't criticize myself if I did not complete that goal or fulfill it completely, because sometimes life happens and we have to make adjustments as we go along the way.
Very nice. And here is another question from audience. As a female leader, what has been the most significant barrier in your career? Have you been confronted with gender related roadblocks in your career?
Absolutely. So, in that sense, you know, you have to find a middle ground. What I have learned to do, I have learned to adapt to my male colleagues by finding things I have in common with them to generate conversation. So, if my colleagues are into sci-fi, sports, money, whatever they're interested in, I try to find avenues to have those conversations to try to bridge that gap in order to make those significant connections.
Yeah. Felicia, thank you so much for your wonderful answers. Have a great day. Merry Christmas.
Thank you so much.